Well, now we've covered all three possible patterns for electron pushing in resonance. For electron pushing in resonance, these are the only three possible patterns. We can take a lone pair and make it into a pi bond. We can take a pi bond and make it into a lone pair, and we can take a pi bond and make it into another pi bond. And I hope that you're very clear in your mind about how you can look at an electron pushing arrow and decide which of these three patterns you're in. So it's important to be clear in your mind about how you know which pattern you're in. Remember, if the tail of the arrow is on a lone pair, then you're moving a lone pair. Or if the tail of an arrow is on a negative charge, well then that stands for a lone pair, and you're still moving a lone pair. The other possibility for the tail is that the tail could be in the middle of a pi bond. If the tail of the arrow is in the middle of a pi bond, then you're moving a pi bond. And then where could the head of the arrow be? Well, the head of the arrow could be pointing at the middle of a sigma bond. If the head of the arrow is pointing at the middle of a sigma bond, that means you're creating a new pi bond. The other possibility is that you could be creating a lone pair. What would the head of the arrow look like then? Well, if you're creating a new lone pair, the head of the arrow would be pointing directly at an atom. Well, I hope that all of those things that I just went through very briefly are very clear to you, and if they're not, you should look back at all the examples that we just did. Remember that the one pattern that is always illegal is taking a lone pair on one atom and make it into a lone pair on another atom. I hope you can see that on the board this is crossed out. We never take a lone pair on one atom and make it into a lone pair on another atom. Now, all the examples we've been doing so far, I've been giving you the electron pushing arrow, and you've been drawing the resonance structure based on that. Now, I admit that's not usually what you're going to do on problems. On problems, you have to come up with your own electron pushing arrows. But it's pointless to try to come up with your own electron pushing arrows unless you really understand what to do if you're given an electron pushing arrow. So that's what we've been working on so far. And we're still going to keep working very slowly and building up our skills step by step. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep giving you the electron pushing arrows, but now I'm going to give you more than one in a picture. I'm going to give you pictures with more than one electron pushing arrow. And I'm going to ask you to, again, draw the new resonance structures that are based on that. So since we're moving on to a slightly higher skill, now's the time to make sure that you've mastered what we've gone over so far. What we've gone over so far is when you're given one electron pushing arrow, drawing the next resonance structure. And remember, the most important part of that is getting the charges right. If you're getting everything right but the charges, you're totally messing up. You've got to get the charges correct. Now, I think some of you might have thought that the problems that I've been giving you here were super easy and really boring. Well, good. Boring is good. However, there might be some of you watching the videos that actually missed a bunch of the questions that I've been giving you of these examples. And actually, you might have felt that you learned something from the examples I just went through. If you found yourself missing a fair number of the examples that I've been giving you of these three cases, and if you feel that you learned something from it, then you should not proceed with the videos yet. Instead, you should go back and rewind the video and do those examples again. There's no point going on to the next step unless you've mastered what we've already gone over. Now, I know that some of you might really already have mastered it or might have found that it's boring and too easy. But there might be some of you that found that the stuff that we went over so far was actually a little bit difficult. If so, don't go on unless you're confident about all this previous material. So just go back to the beginning of where I started giving you examples of these three cases and do those problems again. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an annotation link on the YouTube screen, and you can click on that annotation link and go back to the beginning of this section of the videos, and then you can just go through those problems again. You don't need to do that if you thought these questions were boringly easy, but if you didn't think they were boringly easy, go back and redo them again before you go on to the next step. Our goal here is to take our time and really master each step of the material that we're going through.